Howard Rourke laughed. Those are the opening words of The Fountainhead, one of Ayn Rand's best-selling novels, which has captivated millions of readers. It has ignited a spark in the minds of Americans for several generations. It has had a profound impact on my life and perhaps on the lives of many of you watching us today. What explains the lasting appeal of Ayn Rand's novels? Commenting on The Fountainhead in particular, Ayn Rand wrote, "At the dawn of their lives, men seek a noble vision of man's nature and of life's potential. There are very few guideposts to find. The Fountainhead is one of them. This is one of the cardinal reasons of the Fountainhead's lasting appeal. It is a confirmation of the spirit of youth, proclaiming man's glory, showing how much is possible." Today, we'll share with you how Ayn Rand's novels are continuing to ignite young minds with a noble vision of human nature and of life's potential. Welcome to this special ARI event, Give the Gift of an American Classic. My name is Ilan Journo. ARI works to foster growing awareness of Ayn Rand's novels and ideas. And with your help, we can bring Ayn Rand's books to thousands of students. You can help us by donating, and we encourage you to do that today. You can go to aynrand.org/donate at any time today, and we invite your support for the work that we do. Today is special in that we have a donor who has generously agreed to match all the funds given today up to $10,000, which means that because of that match, if you give $100, it will go twice as far. We welcome your support. Now, before we dive in, a quick word about what we're asking of you today. You might have noticed today is November 29th, which happens to be Giving Tuesday. It's a time when many organizations ask you to give until it hurts, to give sacrificially, to be selfless. We reject that approach. Taking our cue from Ayn Rand's worldview, we're inviting you to invest in furthering your own values in a rationally self-interested, non-sacrificial way. We invite you to have a win-win relationship with ARI. We think the world will be a far better place if more people read Ayn Rand and engage seriously with her vision of the moral ideal. We adopt what Ayn Rand called the trader principle, exchanging value for value. And that's what we're hoping you will agree to do with us today. We're going to offer you a glimpse of the impact that Rand's novels have on young people and that the work of the Institute has made possible. And if you share our goal of bringing Ayn Rand's books to wider audiences, we hope you'll consider helping us today. If Ayn Rand's books have ignited something in you, we hope that you will support our work to ignite young minds by bringing them copies of We the Living, Anthem, The Fountainhead, and Atlas Shrugged. There are tens of thousands of students all over the world, all over North America, who are starved for heroes. And in Ayn Rand's novels, they can find them. Ayn Rand's idealism, this sublime vision of the human potential that she dramatizes in her novels, it really stands out in today's culture. And Ayn Rand invites you to look up to heroes, to emulate their independence of mind, their commitment to truth, their integrity, and above all, their reliance on their rational minds to succeed. This is part of what I hope you'll take away from today's event and find inspiration in. Ayn Rand had a distinctive approach to writing novels that have succeeded in inspiring generations of readers. Now, did she see herself as a novelist primarily or as a philosopher primarily? Here's how she herself explained it.
Do you consider yourself primarily a novelist or primarily a philosopher?
I would say I'm primarily both equally and for the same reasons. You see, my main interest and purpose, both in literature and in philosophy, is to define and present the image of an ideal man, the specific, concrete image of what man can be and ought to be. And when I started writing, when I approached the task of literature and began to study philosophy, I discovered that I was in profound disagreement with all the existing philosophies, particularly their codes of morality. Therefore, I had to do my own thinking. I had to define my own full philosophical system in order to discover and present the kind of ideas and premises that make an ideal man possible, in order to define what kind of convictions would result in the character of an ideal man.
What kind of convictions would result in the character of an ideal man. She had to originate a whole perspective on life, a whole system of thought, a philosophy, in order to conceptualize what it is that she thought is possible to humans, what is the human potential, and then to dramatize it. And I wanted you to hear from Ayn Rand herself one more time, just to get a sense for how she characterizes her own approach to life, her philosophy.
First, my philosophy is based on the concept that reality exists as an objective absolute, that man's mind, reason, is his means of perceiving it, and that man needs a rational morality. I am primarily the creator of a new code of morality, which has so far been believed impossible, namely, a morality not based on faith. Not on faith, not on arbitrary whim, not on emotion, not on arbitrary edict, mystical or social, but on reason, a morality which can be proved by means of logic, which can be demonstrated to be true and necessary.
All right. All right.
Now, may I define what my morality is?
All right.
Because this is merely an introduction. My morality is based on man's life as a standard of value. And since man's mind is his basic means of survival, I hold that if man wants to live on earth and to live as a human being, he has to hold reason as an absolute, by which I mean that he has to hold reason as his only guide to action, and that he must live by the independent judgment of his own mind, that his highest moral purpose is the achievement of his own happiness, and that he must not force other people, nor accept their right to force him, that each man must live as an end in himself and follow his own rational self-interest. I say that man is entitled to his own happiness, and that he must achieve it himself, but that he cannot demand that others give up their lives to make him happy. And nor should he wish to sacrifice himself for the happiness of others. I hold that man should have self-esteem.
Point for point, every single idea that Ayn Rand stands for challenges the assumptions that many of us have grown up with, the assumptions that we hear and are voiced in our culture every day. To live by one's own independent judgment, to work to achieve one's own happiness. Happiness as a moral goal in a non-sacrificial way. Ayn Rand really challenges us to look at the world in a new and different way. And I think when you understand her approach to life, you can understand how these ideas are embodied in the characters that she drew, the larger-than-life heroes. Heroes like Howard Rourke, Dagny Taggart, Kira Guneva in We the Living, and other heroes in Ayn Rand's novels. Rand's heroes are unlike anyone you've ever met before, and they're the kind of people that you want to meet. That's at least how I experienced it the first time I read The Fountainhead. These are people I admired. I wanted to learn from them, to emulate aspects of their personalities and their characters, the ideals that they lived by. Now, these characters are simultaneously unique and vividly specific individuals, the sort of people you'd want to meet and get to know and become friends with, perhaps. But at the same time, they really are, they live the ideas that Ayn Rand thinks are moral ideals. And they're inspiring, and they're achievable, and they're rational. I'd like you to hear from one of the students we've connected with through our programs, Leah. She has read Atlas Shrugged as part of our essay contest, which is something that we sponsor. And I want you to hear how she encountered Ayn Rand's heroes and the effect that that had on her.
I grew up in a culture that lacked many things, but the scarcest resource of all was a sense of purpose. In a town where curiosity caused suspicion and passion meant vulnerability, I was out of place. Spending my first 15 years there, I learned how dim even an initially beaming spark of light could grow, if put down rather than sustained and nurtured. I discovered Rand's fiction when I was at a personal crossroads. Should I remain in my native Germany or take a leap of faith and move across the world to America, the one nation that to me most embodied a culture of risk-taking, curiosity, and excitement? I knew that America was a much better cultural fit. Yet nagging doubts still crept up, whether they were voiced by my parents, teachers, friends, or my very self. Who was I to think I could make the jump? How would I make ends meet? Where would I find my people? Why would I choose the hard route, building up a life from scratch, when the gentle blanket of the status quo offered safety and comfort from youth till old age? Those were my thoughts when I first opened the covers of Atlas Shrugged. Yet with page turn after page turn, the doubt silenced and my conviction grew. Encountering the boldness of Dagny Taggart, John Galt, and Hank Reardon provided me with concrete examples of self-made souls. These characters saw life as something worth cherishing, and what better way to cherish it than to strive toward realizing one's full potential. Against the backdrop of cynicism, inertia, and weakness, so espoused by contemporary culture, Rand's works revealed the potential for life to be something beautiful. I was starved for heroes that did not settle for mere existence, but made it their mission to flourish instead. For me, Rand thus filled a spiritual void. The essay contests gave me the opportunity to immerse myself deeply in the world of Atlas Shrugged, deeper than I had ever done before. The close reading surfaced a richness of metaphor and philosophy that, at the time of my first reading, had remained hidden in the pages. The week spent refining the essay helped me develop a clearer language to communicate Rand's ideas to an uninitiated audience. First and foremost, though, the study of the characters heightened my aspiration to reach further. Rand's work was the catalyst for decisions that have forever left a mark on my life. Due to her emphasis on striving, on taking risks, not merely settling for, but creating a life, I've embodied an unusual amount of roles at 21. That of a foreign student thrown into a new culture, a blue-collar worker on the factory floors of Germany, an immigrant to the US, and a writer immersed in Silicon Valley. When I look back at my 18-year-old self, still unaware of the world's real and fictitious Galts and Reardons, I'm struck by how much I have developed since. Rand reinstalled the spark that I have struggled to feed at home. The remaking of a soul takes years. Thanks to Rand, and thanks to donors like you, the light is now shining brighter than ever.
Leah was starved for heroes, and opening the pages of Atlas Shrugged, she encountered numerous heroes that ignited in her the spark that she was trying to kindle. That is the power that Ayn Rand's books can have on an individual. And that's the work that we do at the Ayn Rand Institute. We help introduce young people to Ayn Rand's books. And it is thanks to donors like you that Leah had the opportunity to read Atlas Shrugged. Today, we're inviting you to help us do more of that, to reach more students like Leah. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Amber Brown, to tell us a bit about today, what makes today special and why we're inviting you to contribute. So we welcome donations year-round, but tell us a bit about what's special today, Amber.
Today, we have a very generous donor who is matching the first $10,000 donated. So that is it's a couple thousand books into the hands of students matched today for our donations.
And if you're watching us live, or if you're watching us recorded, however you're watching, open a new tab. Don't go away. Open a new tab and go to, tell us the address.
AynRand.org/donate. That's AYNRAND.org/donate.
Thanks, Amber. And we'll come back to you in a little bit to hear more about how it's going. And I know we already received some donations before we went live, so it's really exciting today. We thank all of you for supporting the work that we do. We have a lot more to show you and a lot more to tell you. We'll come back in a few minutes to talk more about that. Now, I want to go into this theme that we heard in Leah's discussion about her experience, about the unique Rand hero and the impact that has on an individual. Let's hear from Ayn Rand herself. She was asked in a conversation with the broadcaster Mike Wallace, what makes a hero? And then how does she herself conceptualize a hero? Let's hear what she had to say on that.
My idea of a hero, such as John Galt, is a man who acts on his own judgment, who is an independent sovereign consciousness. He selects his goals He selects them rationally, he is confident of his own rightness, and he pursues his goal. If I were to sum up in one proper abstraction what Mickey was saying in concrete terms and what I'm saying philosophically, his type of hero and mine have one crucial human attribute: self-esteem. When you say a man will not allow himself to be pushed around, the reason why he won't is because he values himself. A man of self-esteem will also know that if he wants something, it's up to him to achieve it. And he is confident of his ability to achieve it. In other words, it's an efficacious man instead of a helpless, determined amoeba, which is the prevalent view of men today. You see,
A helpless, determined amoeba?
determined by forces beyond its control. The view prevalent in our culture and literature today is that man is a helpless piece of driftwood, and some literally call him an amoeba, that he has no choice about his life. He couldn't help it, is his basic slogan. He is miserable, futile, helpless, impotent.
Where
That
do
is
you
their view
get
of
the
man.
idea that that is the general view of the writers and philosophers of today?
Well, I would say open practically any book today. There's very rare exceptions. Just read any novel and see whether helplessness, despair, and futility isn't the theme, the basic view of life.
Notice Ayn Rand's stress here on viewing human beings as having free will, not being determined. This is another distinctive feature of the Rand hero. They are beings of self-made soul. They choose their own values. They choose the character features that they develop, and they pursue the kind of soul that they want to have. And they have fundamental agency over their own mind, and therefore of their own path in life. And this, I think, goes to some of what makes Rand so distinctive in today's culture. She really contrasts with prevailing views about human nature and what's life's potential. And again, this vision of a human being as not a helpless plaything of forces outside of their control, but instead an individual who can achieve their chosen values, who can exert the effort, use their free will to gain knowledge, to live by their rational judgment. All of that, I think, is what helps to understand what makes Rand's stories so thrilling and so engaging. So it's precisely because she dramatizes characters who choose to pursue goals and then face conflicts. And then we see their inner life and their understanding of their situation and how they try to overcome the problems and conflicts that are thrown their way. I think this is part of what draws people into the story. What will happen? How will Howard Rourke achieve the goal he sets out for himself at the beginning of the story? The beginning of the story of Howard Rourke, who wants to be an architect, is that he's expelled from architecture school. However, is he going to pursue this goal in life? And the first words of that story are, Howard Rourke laughed. He overcomes the challenges that are thrown in his way, and he never lets up. That is, I think, part of what's so powerful about encountering a hero from the Fountainhead like Howard Rourke, and what makes Rand's approach to the human potential so invigorating. It's people can control their lives, they can achieve things, and she dramatizes that so beautifully in her novels. Now, I'd like you to hear from another student who read The Fountainhead and the impact that that book had on her.
Hi, my name is Suyeon Chan, and I'd like to share a short reflection I wrote on the impact that The Fountainhead has had on my life. The Fountainhead has given me a novel perspective on my life and my identity. While reading the book, I found myself identifying with Keating, as I'd always tried to morph myself to fit my parents' expectations. I was futilely searching for my sense of worth as an individual in other people's judgments, which in itself is contradictory and foolish, although I did not have that insight before reading The Fountainhead. With both my parents being doctors, I've always been under pressure to go into a major STEM field like biology or medicine. However, learning about Rourke's story helped me challenge that. Rourke embodied everything that I admired in a person. He was relentlessly individualistic and found his worth and happiness not in people's judgments like I had, but in pursuing his architectural passions. His unshakable individualism was captivating and inspiring, and encouraged me to reflect deeply on my own values. In middle school, in fact, I had found that I felt most myself while writing, and not while doing STEM subjects. My relationship with writing, I think, mirrors Rourke's relationship with architecture. Writing, especially poetry, allows me to be most absolutely and unapologetically myself. Learning about Rourke's story has therefore encouraged me to fully embrace my passion for writing and tell those around me how important it is for me. Additionally, reflecting on the theme of laughter and its deeper implications through the essay prompt helped me see how each character, including Wynan, Dominique, and Catherine, fit into Rand's larger philosophical narrative and consider my place within that narrative as well. Overall, reading The Fountainhead and participating in this contest allowed me to reflect critically on my values and refocus them to truly prioritize my happiness and individual identity. The Fountainhead was a deeply transformative book, and I actually signed up for an Introduction to Architecture class in the spring in my high school because it was so inspirational for me. I'm tremendously grateful for the opportunity to go through this wonderful informative experience that will stay with me for years to come. Thank you.
That was lovely. I get goosebumps listening to her. Just the ability of a young person to reflect on their lives, to take seriously what matters to them, and figure out their own path. I think the inspiration of Howard Rourke as someone who doesn't follow what other people tell him. He's not a sort of conformist to social mores in the sense of being blindly authority bowing. He figures out things for himself, and he doesn't need other people to tell him what to do. He figures it out. He really thinks about what matters in his own life. Now, Amber, I just want to share one sort of personal comment. When we were preparing for today's live stream, you told me something that I now realize we have in common, that you first read Ayn Rand through The Fountainhead. Tell us a bit about that.
Yes, sir. I was given a copy of The Fountainhead by my AP English teacher my senior year of high school to participate in ARI's essay contest. And it transformed my life as it did Soon Yi's. Seeing, as she pointed out, someone who could choose a purpose and live with meaning was very inspirational for me as well.
Awesome. I wasn't assigned the book, but I happened to read it because it was mentioned in my English class in high school as well. So it's fun to have that in common. So how are things going? Tell us a bit about the fundraising side. And if possible, let's acknowledge some of the donors who've come forward so far.
Yes, I'm getting updates continuously from donors whose donations are being matched today. So we have $500, which is normally 100 books into the hands of students, but today with the matching donation is going to be 200 books. That donor is from New Jersey. We have another donor who generously gave from Madison, Indiana. We have a donor from Corvallis, Oregon, as well as Powell, Ohio. So awesome. All very generous donations, yes.
Well, very thank exciting. You, Amber. Thank you to all of you who are supporting us today. Go ahead.
Yes, and if you want to also donate, it's aynrand.org/donate to make a donation today. And again, if you donate today, you will have your donation doubled, thanks to a very generous donor.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have that kind of support from our matching donor and from all the donors who are making their mark today as well. We appreciate that. We're really grateful for you seeing the value in the work that we do and wanting to invest in your own ideals and your own values and seeing them furthered by sharing Ayn Rand's books with students throughout the country. We welcome your support, and we're really grateful to those of you who've already given. We encourage you to take a step now. If you want to open a tab and give us your support, we really would be grateful. All right, let's continue. I want to pick up on a couple of themes from the video we just listened to about the way the Ayn Rand hero achieves their own self-confidence, takes responsibility for the goals they see in their life, and then pursues them. As you can tell from the videos we're sharing with you so far, we love to hear from the students who engage in our programs, who read the books and take part in a contest or in the classroom. And one of the fun things we learn about is both the impact of the books on them, but also the kind of personal resonance that the stories have. And I'm here because Howard Rourke had a really powerful effect on me. It really influenced the direction of my life and the direction of my thinking. And it's really fun to hear students, not all of them necessarily have a powerful reaction, but they're activated in a way that is really unusual. It's lovely to hear it. one of the themes we found lately in some of the comments we've received from students is that the character of Dagny Taggart in Atlas Shrugged is particularly inspiring to some subset of students. I mean, I found her inspiring too when I read the book after reading The Fountainhead, but I want you to hear from a couple of the students we've talked to hear what it is about Dagny that they like. Now, just for context, if you haven't yet read Atlas Shrugged, or if you're in the middle of reading it, or wherever you are in your path, exploring Ayn Rand's ideas and novels, just to tell you a little bit about Dagny Taggart. So she's a woman who grows up from the earliest age we can see, and her career ambition is to run the Taggart Transcontinental Railroad. It belongs to her family for many generations. And at one point, given the context of the story and the culture that she lives in, it occurs to her, women don't do that. That's so unusual. And then she brushes it aside and never gives it a second thought. She moves determinedly toward her goal, and she in effect becomes the person who runs the railroad. And then she has a lot of challenges in trying to keep it running amid economic upheaval. But she's just an unusual character in this respect, and just being determined. Let's hear from a couple of students who marked Dagny Taggart as someone that they had a particular resonance with.
But there's something about her writing that is captivating. And soon, what was a multiple 1,000-page book became something I couldn't put down. And I think my favorite part was watching Dagny be an incredible boss and a silent partner all at the same time, be in charge of her social life, not doing what people expected, but doing what she wanted. And then ultimately watching her fall in love with amazing men, and finding the ultimate man, the man that above all believed in work and hard work and good work, a man that finally deserved Dagny Taggart. But also watching her learn from men like Hank Rearden along the way was really amazing. And I count myself lucky to have read this book.
So Dagny definitely had an impact on her. Let's hear from one more student who took part in the essay contest and actually placed very well in the finals.
In 2018, I discovered ARI's Atlas Shrugged essay contest. The massive books which had previously evaded me sprung back into my memory. I was determined to complete the novel and enter the contest. Thus began my 9-month introductory journey into the world of Atlas and Rand. This quickly blossomed into a genuine admiration for the story and characters, especially Dagny. I had never before read a story with a female protagonist whose focal point was an unapologetic competency. Of course, Dagny shares certain traits with other heroines, the drama, romance, and mystique, but she's different because those are not her defining features. Dagny can stand on her own. She's an independent worker and thinker in a world of those who refuse to take accountability. As a small business owner myself, her actions and attitude greatly inspired me. Dagny empowered me to express certain aspects of myself which I had been taught to bury.
That is part of the power of what I think of as great literature. It makes you see the world in new ways, and you can take from it lessons that help you think about your life and what you want out of it. And as you heard from those two students, Dagny Taggart was a particular favorite of theirs. And we'd love to have many more students encounter Dagny Taggart and other heroes from Rand's novels with your help. So we'd love to get your support to help bring more books to more students if you'd like to do that. I just want to offer one other reflection on Dagny Taggart and just the whole setting in Atlas Shrugged, and connect it to the theme of today's event, which is give the gift of an American classic. And I think of Ayn Rand's novels as American classics, and I think they are, and they're embraced in classrooms and they're taught as part of the American canon. And one reason I think of them as belonging there is that Ayn Rand's conception of human life has resonance with some of what America was famous for in the past. Its culture of people who are self-responsible, who are moving forward, who are ambitious, who rise up from humble beginnings to achieve great things. And that is Ayn Rand's conception goes well beyond that, but there's a definite overlap there between what made America famous for people's success and the opportunities that it held open before them. And part of what Ayn Rand dramatizes and makes vivid and encouraging. And the other thing that goes along with this, and I've always had this perspective before I lived in the US, and it's been confirmed, is that there's something about the American attitude to life, which is you take it seriously and you don't obey authorities. You don't kneel before somebody. You expect reasons, and you don't let people push you around. You expect reasons and persuasion, and you don't submerge yourselves in some collective and become a faceless cog in a machine. You are a person, you matter, and your life is important. That aspect, I'm not saying that's true of America today. Unfortunately, I think some of that is fading, but this is part of what Ayn Rand's conception of life, I think, breathes life into the American vision that once was, and I think can be once again in the future. So in this sense, there's a way in which America and Ayn Rand, there's a real connection here between her view of what the ideal life is and how to approach it, and the kind of society that America once was, and the premises behind it. Now, I don't think American culture fully conceptualized that way of living, and I think that there's, as I mentioned, it's waning and it's rather sad. But I think of a part of what's exciting about more people reading Ayn Rand's books is that it can reawaken that in people. It can help introduce them to it if they've never seen it before. And I always think of Dagny Taggart as epitomizing, she's not the only character who does this, but she epitomizes this can-do spirit of solving problems, of achieving new goals. And she, as I mentioned earlier, she's an industrialist. She runs a railroad, and she is trying to build it out and grow it and keep it thriving. And just watching her approach each challenge, each obstacle, each rock that's thrown in her path, that I think is part of what is inspiring, and part of what it would be great for more people to see, because I think the more they can emulate that aspect of her, the more we will see the revival of what was best in the American culture of the past, and that unfortunately is not as salient as it ever was in the past today. So that we heard a little bit about the resonance of Dagny Taggart from a couple of students. And just to remind you, today is a special occasion. We are pushing to match all $10,000 that we've been offered by one donor. We really want your support. We hope that you will be inspired by some of what we're talking about today and sharing with you. And we would like to suggest, and this is my view, that by helping us bring Ayn Rand's books to more students, you're improving the world for yourself. You're having an impact on young lives. You're igniting them to think more seriously about themselves. And I think the more people who take Ayn Rand's ideas seriously, the better the world, the better direction we'll take in the world. How much better will it be if more people aspire to be like Howard Rourke, like Dagny Taggart, and other heroes that Ayn Rand projects? I think the world will be markedly improved, and I hope that resonates with you as well. So if you'd like to support us today and help us reach that matching goal, go to aynrand.org, AYNRAND.org/donate. You can do that now, open a tab, come back, and continue on with today's program. Okay, so we've talked a bit about students who've read the books, the kind of impact it has on them. I want to draw out one other aspect that we've seen when we talk to students. And as I said, we'd love to hear from them. And if you're someone who's read Ayn Rand through one of our programs, please reach out. We'd love to hear from you. One of the themes we've heard from students and from some of the teachers, and we'll hear from them in a moment, is that reading Ayn Rand opens their eyes in a new way to look at things and to prompt them to ask questions. You've heard of that theme come out a few times in some of the students we've heard from already, but I want to draw out this aspect, which is in contrast with some of what students experience outside the classroom and the culture at large. So let's hear from Kelly, who has a particular angle on this.
A lot of my peers spend a lot of time arguing on social media about politics and economics and ethics, but don't spend a lot of time thinking about those things and asking questions of themselves and their beliefs. And reading Atlas Shrugged, you really find yourself asking, do I agree with Rand? Has she convinced me? What are some counter arguments? The villains and the heroes in Atlas Shrugged are completely apparent from the beginning and lack the ambiguities within most modern novels, heroes or anti-heroes. So it's almost like Rand challenges you from the beginning with this bold statement of, here's right, here's wrong, and you have to mentally confront it head on and work through the story.
Ayn Rand confronts you with questions, and I think this is what she wanted when she thought of her ideal reader. It was always somebody who would think about what they encountered, will ask questions, would challenge. She wanted active-minded readers, and that was, I think, her conception of what she was looking for. And she writes for an active-minded reader, and that's partly why there are so many layers that people can get when they reread her books. There's so much in there that she's put in for people to glean. She wants you to think for yourself, to reach greater clarity about the values that you hold and pursue. And I think that's part of what you heard from Kelly just now. And I want you to hear one more student who has a similar kind of experience about gaining new clarity just by being challenged to think from a different perspective.
I feel like I've grown a lot through reading the book and through analyzing it through the essay prompts. I think that Atlas Shrugged as a whole is a really powerful novel, and in its length, it's able to cover a lot of really important topics, and it pushes the reader, and in this case myself, to really think about what is it that you value. What if you were relating to Dagny? How does it make you feel when she has the struggles that she goes through, when she has the pain that she feels, and when you're relating that to your own work, to like your education as a student, what is it about that challenges you? And I think that through reading it 3 times, I've gotten more comfortable saying, yes, this is what I believe and this is why I believe it. And looking at my life through an objectivist lens point has really allowed me to say, like, what are the aspects of objectivism that I agree with, and what do I not agree with? And that's okay, but do you have a reason? Are you justified in your beliefs? And I think over the past 3 years, Atlas Shrugged has allowed me to grow in my beliefs and to feel more justified in my personal beliefs, and that's what I've gotten the most out of Atlas Shrugged.
That's what Ayn Rand, I think, wanted people to have as an orientation to life. Have reasons for why you believe something, whether one agrees with you or not, but so long as you have reasons for them and you've thought that through. I think that's part of what she's prompting us all to do in her novels, with projecting to us ideals and heroes that stand for and live up to ideals that are very different from the ones that we grow up with. And I think this is part of what makes the book so compelling to students, is that they haven't heard anything like this before. The stories are riveting, and they want to see how it ends. Are these ideals achievable? What does that actually mean in my own life? That's part of what we hear from the students we talk to and from some of the teachers. And I want to tell you a bit about the work that we do to support teachers who ask to teach the books in their classroom and get support from us. We offer them books, we offer them resources, and there's a lot that we heard from teachers. I want to share some of that with you, but one of the things that really stands out from the teachers who seek our support is that they get so excited to teach the books because of the reactions that students have. The students are activated there. It's like a light switch goes on. Whereas in previous modules, for example, whatever books they're reading, the students, some of them are more engaged than others. When they read a book by Ayn Rand in classroom, there is a real electrical current that goes through them. They're really activated and energized by what they're reading. And that doesn't mean they all agree with it. That's far from the case. And that's certainly not what Ayn Rand would have wanted. She would want them to engage and think about what she had to say. And that's what the teachers report over and over for years now, is that their excitement about teaching the novels is a reaction to the kind of impact it has on students. The students love the books. They really enjoy the experience of reading itself, given all the distractions and all the competition there is on their time with screens and so on. It's one of those books. Ayn Rand's books have the effect of turning students onto reading itself in a way that other books really cannot do that. And to pick up on a theme that we've heard so far from a number of the students we've talked to, the books really spark conversation in classroom. It's sort of the thing that teachers really love to have, where students, every student wants to have their say about who's in the right, who's in the wrong, which character do you like, why do you like them, why do you dislike them, who's the good character and why. And this is part of what teachers love having in their classrooms. Now, as I said, we offer teachers all kinds of support, from offering them classroom sets of books, which our donors make possible, to giving them suggested curricula and so forth. And all of that is available on our website. One other thing we do is, we'll talk more about that in a moment, we offer them guest instructors or guest lecturers about Ayn Rand's novels. But before we get to that, which is exciting and there's a lot to tell you about, let's hear from some of the teachers directly who have used Ayn Rand's novels in their classrooms, and what it is they like, what it is they see the students doing, and how they see the whole confrontation between Ayn Rand's heroes and the students in their classrooms.
I've been teaching Ayn Rand's books for about 12 years. It was back in 2008. One of my own students walked up to me and said, "Mr. Herring, you need to read this." And she handed me a copy of The Fountainhead. And I've been teaching Ayn Rand's books ever since.
And I have to say that using Ayn Rand's novel has allowed for us to really check mark all those boxes we have around critical thinking, around cross-curricular discussions that include history and language arts. It is just a really wonderful resource, and we feel quite strongly that it's a big benefit to our students every year. I want to say thank you to the Ayn Rand organization, specifically for a recent endeavor, and that was having two fantastic guest speakers actually give a beautiful session to our students recently, where we were able to open up the dialogue and have the class discuss the book and their thoughts and feelings towards it, and all the reflections that came out of it.
When Aaron talked to the kids, that was just the most engaged that they could have ever been, and they talked about it for weeks. They talked about it when they were writing their essay. I mean, it's just amazing what one person zooming into your classroom can do to really motivate them.
The students sent emails, their parents sent emails after the lessons just saying how wonderful it was. And it really deepened their appreciation for their experience and their engagement with the novel. So we were so, so grateful.
I want my own students to imagine themselves standing on top of the building with the sun shining on them as it does on Howard Rourke. Thank you so much for what you do to bring Ayn Rand's books to our students. We're making the world a better place.
So you heard there from a number of teachers who connected with us, and we offer them the resources to help them in the classroom. And as I said, you heard the teachers themselves talk about how the students were alight with excitement for weeks afterwards, and they were talking about it themselves. That's the kind of thing that I think any teacher really hopes to accomplish when they bring students to a novel of any kind. And I think this happens naturally with Ayn Rand's books, precisely because of the unusual heroes that she projects, the ideas that she offers that are so confronting and challenging the assumptions that students have encountered. So it's like nothing they've ever encountered before. Stories that are just captivating, that draw them in and that make them turn the pages, and a lot of food for thought, which I think is part of what teachers get so excited about, as you heard from them. Now, in that video we just listened to, we heard a mention of an Aaron. So I want to introduce you to one of my colleagues, Aaron Smith, who is one of our instructors. Aaron's involved in a lot of the classroom activities that we do, including zooming into classrooms to give guest talks and answer questions. So Aaron, tell us a bit about what you enjoy about going to classrooms and sharing with students.
Well, you got to think that or keep in mind that these are teenagers. So these are 13 to 18. They're at a time in their lives when they're trying to, in effect, think about who they are and what kind of person they want to be. And they don't exactly formulate it in that way, but they're in that time where they have to figure out, what do I stand for? What do I believe? Who am I? And this is a great time for them to encounter Rand's novels for the first time, because, I mean, they're reading these stories for the very first time. And what that means in the end is they're encountering for the first time Rand's vision of man, of life's possibilities, of what you could become, what life could be like. And I think it's what makes it so compelling, the stories, and what gets them animated about the stories and, really wanting to dig in and ask a lot of questions.
When we were listening to some of the other students earlier, a number of them explained their reaction by turning the question to, what does this mean for me? How does this impact my life? What kind of things are you seeing from the students you talk with?
Yeah, so I think maybe two major, I don't know, hubs around which we're getting questions, and a lot of it is about what independence involves. Whether they're reading Anthem or the Fountainhead or Atlas Shrugged or whichever, it's like, what does it mean to be independent in life? What does it mean to really think for yourself and to forge your own way? And then related to that point, it's what does it really mean to live for oneself? I mean, when Rand is offering a new vision of what self-interest involves, and a new perspective on the kinds of values and virtues that are entailed by that perspective on this is what your life requires, what your happiness requires. And that's a challenging one. It's different. They're not used to hearing it. It's more admirable than they might have thought. And yet it has implications that they have to really process. And a lot of the questions are about what are the implications of this for my life, for the way I would face life if I were to live like a Rourke or like one of the characters that are heroic, a Dagny. And so that's where my I'm a philosopher. I don't want to come in there and give a lecture. I mean, I want to dig into the stories and the characters and their motivations and what drives them and why. And so a lot of the focus is on that, and a lot of the questions are on the characters' motivations and about the way they face life, and what would it mean if I faced my life like that.
Do you get students asking about, is this even possible? Could someone really live like this? And just relating it to the world as we know it today, do you get that kind of thing?
Yeah, a lot of the questions then are also about how does this apply, and in what ways does it apply to my life? I mean, the novels give you a very concretized, but also highly stylized view of a way of living and a way of facing life. And part of my job and kind of coming into the classroom is to help them abstract the message that's coming out of the story, and not get it confused with, they're like, well, I'm not an architect and I'm not an artistic genius like Rourke or something. And so what would it mean to live a Rourke-like life? But maybe I have a different view about what I want to do with my life, and you help them abstract, while helping them also just relish the actual concrete characters in the story. And they have a lot of questions about them for obvious reasons.
Tell me a bit about, tell me, just as we wrap up, we're going to move to some other topics. I'm interested in just your personal reaction. What do you enjoy about reading Ayn Rand's novels? What captivated you originally?
Well, I think the same thing that I really want to try to engender or foster in the students I talk to in the classroom visits. In Rand's novels, I think it was Fountainhead was my first, taught me what it means to take your life seriously, what it means to take your own happiness seriously. And when I talk to the students, I want to help them take their own lives and their own happiness seriously, whether they wind up agreeing with Rand, but they should be thinking about these questions. What do I want from life? What do I want to become? And take that really seriously. And I hope I can convey that in some way to the students.
Now, one other thought I had, I know that was the final question, but one other thought I wanted to throw at you. I've heard, I haven't done these myself, but I've heard that there are often a lot more questions than time. And what do you tell the students if they've read Anthem? What do you suggest that they do? How does it end? What do you suggest to them when they have more questions? What do they do?
We always suggest a next novel, and we offer them a free novel, and we can put a QR code up on the screen, and they can come up and click on it and get a free book and stuff. So we definitely talk about the novels because there's so much more to explore. You mentioned more questions than we can answer. I had a really good experience once. I gave a classroom talk, and I was the teacher had 2 sessions lined up, one right after the other. And there may be 25 students in each class, like a 10 o'clock and an 11 o'clock or whatever. And after the 10 o'clock session, the students talked to other students in other classes. And so the assistant principal or whatever switched the rooms and made it the library. And they brought 3 or 4 different classes in at the same time. Like, everybody's got to hear this. And that was really cool. And we just stayed after talking, because I think they had lunch after. And so some students could just skip lunch or whatever and talk. So no, these are compelling stories, and there's a reason why they respond to them in the way they do, and they should, and we should foster that.
Well, Aaron, I thank you for joining us today, and thanks for the work you do reaching into classrooms and helping teachers and students get more out of their reading. Great to have you. We're going to now move on to one other topic I wanted to share with everybody, and just remind you that where's Amber? I want to get an update on how things are going with our drive. Welcome back, Amber. Tell us a bit about how it's going.
Hey, it's going very well. We've gotten donations from Hendersonville, North Carolina, a very excited and special donor from San Diego, California, Strongsville, Ohio, another donor in Leander, Texas, who helps us tremendously. Brandon, Florida, all across the country. Millersville, Maryland, another wonderful donor from there as well. So putting more books into the hands of students today and doubling their donations today.
Awesome.
So go ahead and now, before we're done here, go ahead and open a tab and click on AynRand.org/donate. AynRand.org/donate.
Yeah, thanks for that update, and thanks to all the donors. Obviously, we're not going to mention their names, but we mentioned where they're from, just as an indication. And we appreciate all the support we're receiving today. Thanks to the donor who's giving us the matching funds, particularly, and all of you who are coming in to help us reach that target. We really appreciate it. I want to now turn the focus to some of our donors and take this opportunity today. We've heard a lot from students, we've heard some teachers, and I hope you've enjoyed hearing some of that. I want to just acknowledge the work that our donors put in to make it possible for us to do all this, and that you can hear from them what it is that they get from supporting the work of the Ayn Rand Institute. Perhaps that'll inspire you, perhaps that'll put it in a new light for you. And I want you to hear what inspires them, what motivates them to support the work of bringing Ayn Rand's novels to young people all around the country. One of our goals today was to express, not only just to raise money, of course, we welcome your support, but also to acknowledge and thank all the donors who have made the successes of the Institute possible, bringing tens of thousands of books all over the country for many, many years. So we're going to hear from a couple of our donors expressing what it is that it means to them to help support these efforts. And I hope maybe you'll catch something here that resonates with you personally.
My name is Jerry Egan. I'm retired after a long and fascinating career as a finance executive in the oil and gas industry. Many years ago, when I was an undergraduate, I read Atlas Shrugged. I was planning a 13-hour Greyhound bus journey, and I needed a thick book to read, and a friend recommended Atlas. It was an eye-opening experience, and at the time, it made me very proud to be starting my career in business. Through the years, I read all of Rand's fiction and all of her nonfiction, and it led me to seek answers to questions like, what is right and wrong? How do you know? How can you be certain? How should you approach life? How should you deal with other people? What are the best politics to support? The answers to these questions led to my success professionally and personally, and allowed me to be happy even during the rough patches in life. So it's my dream that every student be introduced to these ideas, to be told that it's good to come to your own opinions about these kinds of questions, that they should not just rely on authority. That is why I strongly support the Ayn Rand program, Free Books to Teachers, and encourage you to participate. Thank you.
Now, I just want to pick up on a couple of the themes from what we heard there, which is that as she explained it, it matters a lot to her that these values, that the ideas she got from reading Ayn Rand made a big difference in her life. And she wants to see other people have that experience, and that there's a benefit to her in doing that. This goes to the point we talked about at the very beginning of today, which is what we're asking of people today is to invest in their own values, to invest in supporting the Ayn Rand Institute, in furthering the ideas that matter to them, sharing Ayn Rand's novels with more students around the country, and advancing their own ideals non-sacrificially, quite the opposite, to furthering their own ideas and values throughout the culture. So we heard from Jerry Egan about how this matters to her personally and how she would like to see more people support the Institute, and we hope you'll agree with her. I want to turn to another of our donors to hear another personal response to the books and how they feature in her own approach to why it matters to support the Institute.
Hi, I'm Shoshana Milgram, and I'm a longtime supporter of the Free Books for Teachers program and also a longtime teacher at Virginia Tech. Now, when I teach at Virginia Tech, I often ask my students at the beginning of the semester what their favorite books are. And I don't tell them to limit themselves to the books they're required to read, but often they do. And I find out that the very books they were assigned to read in high school have since become favorites, and that they found treasure and pleasure in the very things that they were required to read. So when I heard about the Books to Teachers program, I thought that was a wonderful idea. For one thing, I think that Ayn Rand's books are the best firsthand promotion for the works and for her ideas. Also, I knew that having the books available would be an incentive for teachers to use them and would thus spread the books to more people than would otherwise have a chance to read them. Now, I myself was lucky. I discovered Ayn Rand's books when I was a teenager, and my children were even luckier. My daughters and my son discovered Ayn Rand's writing when they were even younger than I was. And part of what I thought is that with making more of these books available to young people in the classroom, they would learn, they would get the books, and their teachers would also learn because they would see how the students reacted. And of course, they would up their game in order to keep up with the students and to do a good job and do justice to Ayn Rand's writing. Now, I've got one more reason why I like to support the book program. And when I do, the books have a book plate. And the book plate is in memory of my son, Dashiell, because Dashiell loved Anthem, and he loved the Fountainhead, and he lost his life to cancer before he had a chance to read We the Living and Atlas Shrugged. So those books say, for the memory of Dashiell Ari Knapp, who loved this novel, or who loved Anthem, or who loved the Fountainhead. And so I think that if you also love these books, you might enjoy the chance to put these beloved books in the hands and minds of other young people. Thank you.
If you love these books, put them in the hands of young people. That's the message for today. What we've been talking about is the various programs the Institute has to bring those books to students, directly to students who reach out to us on our website, through teachers who reach out to us to ask for classrooms books, who then teach them in the classroom and give them the books to students. We find many ways to reach students, and they come to us as well. We would love your support in expanding these efforts. We've reached tens of thousands of students over the years, and many, many more are still, I think, hungry for heroes or starved for heroes, as we heard earlier today. One last update from you, Amber. How are things going?
Good. The donations are continuing to come in from San Antonio, Texas, Montgomery, Illinois, Lakewood, Colorado, all across the country. So today it's aynrand.org/donate to have your gift doubled in value and put twice as many books in the hands of students.
Thank you. And so there's a sense of urgency. If you can give us today, your money will go further than it would tomorrow or any day of the year otherwise. We're really grateful to our matching donor. Thank you very much for that support, and to all the donors whose residences you mentioned. Thanks for joining me today, Amber. It's been great having you with us. I want to now thank the students who were part of today's event. There are a number of them. We didn't have time to showcase all of them, but we're really grateful to all of them for sharing their experiences, for taking the time to read Ayn Rand's books, and for having the candor to share with us just personal stories that I think are really meaningful and tell, I think, the story of what it is that we do at the Ayn Rand Institute. We ignite young minds by bringing them Ayn Rand's novels and ideas for them to think about, engage with, and direct their lives in reaction to. So we're here and to thank you all for supporting the work that we have been doing, and to encourage you to support us in the work that we want to continue doing for many more years in reaching new people, bringing Ayn Rand's books to wider and wider audiences. To all of you who have supported us so far, thank you. If you're considering a donation, remember today we have a special matching gift. We hope you'll take advantage of that. And I wanted to close just with a final thought that it's been a pleasure to share these stories with you and to showcase some of the experiences the students have had and the teachers, and to remind you what we're here to celebrate, which is the works of Ayn Rand, the power that they have to show people the glory of what life can be and what possibilities there are in human life. So thank you for helping us bring Ayn Rand's novels to wider audiences. We'll see you next time.